Good morning, students. All of you, welcome to the class. In this class, we are going to discuss synopsis from structure of atom. An atom contains subatomic particles like electrons, protons, and neutrons. But initially, John Dalton said that if you take any matter that consists of indivisible, that is finest particles that are called as atoms, the shape of atom is given as a spherical. According to John Dalton, the matter is indivisible, but later studies proved that atoms are further divisible. They are containing subatomic particles like electrons, protons, and neutrons. But the success of Dalton's atomic theory is Dalton succeeded to explain the laws of chemical reactions like law of conservation of mass, law of constant properties, law of multiple proportions, and law of reciprocal proportions. All these are successfully explained by Dalton's atomic model. The demerits or the drawbacks of Dalton's atomic model are he is unable to explain the existence of isotopes, and he did not explain the complete structure of atom. Why? Because means he does not know about the presence of subatomic particles, but the later studies proved that the atoms are further divisible. They are containing very finest particles than atom. They are called as subatomic particles. The next atomic theory proposed by the Thomson, it is called as watermelon model of atom. So according to Thomson, the total mass is going to be completely distributed throughout the atom. That is, positive charges as well as negative charges are going to be completely distributed throughout the atom. And based on cathode rays discharge tube experiment, he succeeded to know about the presence of a negatively charged particle. That negatively charged particle is called as electron. And he succeeded to calculate the charge to mass ratio of electron by the method cathode ray discharge tube experiment method. After the discovery of the calculation of charge to mass ratio of electron, Millikan calculated the charge of electron by using oil drop method. The charge of electron is calculated as 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulombs. So by using of charge to mass ratio of electron and charge of electron, mass of electron is calculated as 9.10939 into 10 to the power of minus 31 kgs. 10 to the power of minus 31 kgs indicating it is negligible. So we can say that mass of electron is negligible in the atom. So if any mass of atom is considered, the mass of atom is due to mass of protons and mass of neutrons only, but not due to mass of electrons, because the mass of electron is negligible. In this Thomson's model, the main limitation is he didn't explain the stability of atom. Why? Because means he considered the total positive and negative charges are completely continuously distributed throughout the atom uniformly. Because of that, positive and negative charges are going to be in contact with each other. Hence, the atom is going to be unstable. So that is the drawback of Thomson's model of atom. Next atomic theory proposed by Rutherford by using alpha ray scattering experiment. According to his theory, atom is going to contain the total mass at the center of the atom, that is called as nucleus. The nucleus is going to contain positive charged sleep particles that are called as protons, and electrons are arranged at the outside of the nucleus, and electrons are assumed to revolve around the nucleus in circular paths. That was given by the Rutherford's atomic model. And in Rutherford's atomic model, what is the method used? What is the experiment used? Alpha ray scattering experiment. And in Rutherford's atomic model, there are so many limitations are there. First of all, whenever the electron is a charged particle. Whenever the electron is going to continuously revolve around the nucleus, it will lose some energy. Then due to attraction of the nucleus, the electron will jump into the nucleus. Eventually, then the atom is going to be unstable. So the stability of atom in this theory is also not explained successfully. And one more thing, whenever the electrons are continuously revolving around the nucleus, then the atom should form continuous spectrum. But the atoms are forming discontinuous spectrums. So the formation of discontinuous spectrums by the atoms was not explained by Rutherford's atomic model. Coming to the types of subatomic particles, there are so many subatomic particles are there, but we are mainly discussing about 3 subatomic particles: protons, neutrons, and electrons. Among these 3, heavier mass particles are neutrons, because the mass of neutron is 1.674 into 10 to the power of minus 24 grams, or 1.674 into 10 to the power of minus 27 kgs. Coming to the mass of proton, the mass of proton is given as 1.672 into 10 to the power of minus 24 grams, or 1.672 into 10 to the power of minus 27 kgs. So if we compare these two values, here 1.674 is there, here 1.672 is there. So we can say that mass of neutron is heavier than mass of proton, whereas mass of electron is negligible. Then we can write the order: mass of neutron is greater than mass of proton is greater than mass of electron. And according to Thomson's model, he succeeded to calculate the specific charge of electron. Specific charge of any particle, not only electron, the specific charge of any particle is given by E by M. E stands for charge of the particle, M stands for mass of the particle. And relation between specific charge to mass of the particle is inversely proportional. As the mass of the particle increases, specific charge of the particle decreases. Here, mass of neutron is having a heavier mass. That's why specific charge of the neutron is less. Whereas mass of electron is negligible. That's why specific charge of electron is higher. So then we can write the order of specific charges of fundamental particles as specific charge of electron is greater than, proton is greater than neutron. Wherever you want to write the notes, you can pause the video, you can take the screenshot, whatever the points I underlined, try to practice the MCQs based on them. And coming to the isotopes of atom. Atoms are going to exist in different isotopic forms. If you take the hydrogen, hydrogen is existing in three isotopic forms: protium, deuterium, and tritium. Protium contain only one proton, one electron. Deuterium contain one proton, one neutron, one electron, whereas tritium is going to contain one proton, two neutrons, and one electron. So here what is common? Number of electrons are common. So what are meant by isotopes means isotopes of elements have same number of protons but differ in the number of neutrons. Protium is having 0 neutrons, deuterium is having 1 neutron, tritium is having 2 neutrons. So isotopes differ in their number of neutrons, or we can say that isotopes differ in their mass number, but isotopes are having same number of electrons. Because of the same number of electrons, they exhibit same chemical properties. And some other atoms, hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, all of you know carbon is going to exist in three isotopic forms: C612, C613, and C614. C614 is known as the radioactive isotope of carbon. And to calculate the number of neutrons in any atom, the number of neutrons is equal to mass number minus atomic number. Here, a symbol of any atom is given as X, A, Z. A stands for mass number, Z stands for atomic number. Atomic number is nothing but number of protons or number of electrons in a neutral atom. Next theory is Bohr's atomic model. The Bohr's atomic model is based on two theories. One is based on Rutherford's atomic model. Second one is based on Planck's quantization theory or Planck's quantum theory. According to Planck's quantum theory, if any charged particle is under acceleration, it is going to emit or absorb energy discontinuously in the form of small packets. That is called as a photon. Energy of one photon is given as E is equal to h nu. So this is a formula used in Planck's quantum theory to explain the quantization of energies of electrons. So by considering quantization of energies of electrons and by considering Rutherford's atomic model, Bohr succeeded to explain the structure of atom. According to Niels Bohr, electrons are placed around the nucleus in circular paths, in fixed circular paths. That fixed circular paths are called as stationary orbits. And in the stationary orbit, whenever the electron is going to revolve, the electron is neither going to lose or gain the energy. That is called as stationary orbit. And the energy levels of the shells can be represented via quantum numbers. Whenever the electron is going to jump from lower energy level to higher energy level, then the electron is going to absorb energy. When electron jump from higher energy level to lower energy level, electron is going to emit energy. During the emission of energy by the electrons, we can get the discontinuous spectrum. So Bohr's atomic model successfully explained the formation of discontinuous spectrum by the atoms, and Bohr's theory succeeded to calculate the radius of orbits as well as energy of electrons present in the orbits. And Bohr's theory succeeded to calculate the number of electrons also, right? And in the Bohr's theory, the limitations are Bohr's atomic model didn't explain the multi-electron atoms structures. The theory is limited only for hydrogen atom or hydrogen-like species, that is one electron species. For the one electron species only, this theory is applicable, but not for multi-electron species. And the second thing is, this theory does not explain the Stark effect and Zeeman effect. Stark effect or Zeeman effect indicates further splitting of emission spectrum. In presence of Stark effect means Stark effect takes place in presence of electrical field. Zeeman effect takes place in presence of magnetic field. And Bohr's theory didn't explain about the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. What is Heisenberg uncertainty principle? Means whenever an electron is continuously revolving around the nucleus, it is impossible to determine simultaneously both the position and momentum of an electron. So at a time, no two conjugate physical quantities can be measured simultaneously with 100% accuracy. What are the two physical quantities? Means one is change in position, second one is change in momentum. They are the two physical quantities. At a time, they cannot be measured simultaneously with 100% accuracy. It is impossible to measure the two physical quantities at a time. So all of you know the definition. The formula, mathematical form of Heisenberg uncertainty principle is delta x into delta mv. Delta x into m delta v is greater than or equal to h by 4 pi. And drawbacks of Niels Bohr's model of atom is, the drawback is the position and momentum are two conjugate quantities which are measured accurately by Bohr's theory. The Bohr's theory theoretically calculated the two physical quantities at a time with 100% accuracy, but practically it is not possible. And a Stark effect means the phenomena of splitting of line spectrum in the presence of electric field, that is called as Stark effect. The splitting of line spectrum in the presence of magnetic field is called as a Zeeman effect. These two effects are not described by the Niels Bohr's model of atom. Why Niels Bohr failed to explain all those things means because Niels Bohr considered the electron is as particle only. But according to the scientist de Broglie, if you take any matter, whether it may be microscopic or it may be macroscopic, it is having both particle nature as well as wave nature. If I take microscopic, invisible to the naked eye, electrons, protons, neutrons, they are invisible to the naked eye. So in the case of microscopic particles, we can observe both particle nature as well as wave nature. If electron is considered as a particle, when electron is considered as a particle around the nucleus, this is the nucleus. Around the nucleus, electron is revolving in circular path. Electron revolves in circular path. When it is possible means when the electron is considered as a particle. But according to de Broglie, electron is also having wave nature. Here you can see the wave nature of electron. This is the wave nature of electron, crest and trough, again crest and trough, again crest and trough. So this is the possible path of electron. Of course, the circular path is also the possible path of electron. So we cannot determine the exact path of electron. As a result, we cannot determine the exact position of electron. We cannot determine the exact momentum of electron simultaneously. That is the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Why? Because means electron is having dual nature, that is particle nature as well as wave nature. So which type of path is going to be allowed? The path of electron, which type of path is going to be allowed means wherever the circumference of an orbit is going to be, circumference of orbit is nothing but circumference of the circle, that is equal to 2 pi r. Whenever the circumference of an orbit is going to be equal to the integral multiples of wavelength of electron wave. See this one, this is a wave indicating the electron wave. So the integral multiples of electron wave should be equal to the circumference of the electron wave, then only such orbits are going to be exist. So from this concept, we can understand that electron may revolve in circular path or electron may revolve in wave path. So there is uncertainty in the path of electron, there is uncertainty in the position of electron, there is uncertainty in the momentum of electron. Simultaneously, we are unable to calculate both change in position of electron and change in the momentum of electron. That was called as Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. And coming to the quantum numbers, actually quantum numbers are the solutions of Schrodinger wave equation. We are having 4 types of quantum numbers. Principal quantum number. With the help of principal quantum number, what we can calculate? With the help of principal quantum number, what we can calculate? If principal quantum number value is known, principal quantum number value means n value. When the n value is known, we can know about the number of shells. Number of shells is equal to, number of shells in an atom is equal to n. When number of shell is known, number of subshells can be calculated. Number of subshells is equal to, number of subshells is equal to n square. Number of orbitals, number of orbitals. To calculate the number of orbitals, how can you calculate the number of orbitals? How can you calculate the number of orbitals? Sorry, my dear students, just a correction here. So number of shells is equal to n, number of subshells is also equal to n. Number of subshells also equal to n, number of orbitals is equal to n square, number of electrons is equal to 2n square, where we are going to calculate all these in a shell. So in a shell, number of subshells is equal to n. In a shell, number of orbitals is equal to n square. In a shell, number of electrons is equal to 2n square. So by knowing the principal quantum number value, we can calculate the number of subshells in a shell, number of orbitals in a shell, number of electrons in a shell. That is the use of knowing of principal quantum number. And we can also calculate the angular momentum. The angular momentum of an electron in an orbit is equal to mvr is equal to n into h by 2 pi. This is called as angular momentum of an electron in an orbit. And coming to the azimuthal quantum number. Azimuthal quantum number is denoted by small l. Azimuthal quantum number value depends upon principal quantum number value, whereas principal quantum number values are starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Azimuthal quantum number values are starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on, n minus 1. And the relation between the principal quantum number and azimuthal quantum number is azimuthal quantum number values are always lesser than principal quantum number values. Coming to the magnetic quantum number values. Magnetic quantum number values are indicated by m, small m. Magnetic quantum number values depends upon azimuthal quantum number values, and the magnetic quantum number values are starting from minus L to plus L. For example, if you take the L value as 0, that indicates s orbitals. L value as 1, that indicates p orbitals. If L value is taken as 2, that indicates d orbitals. And L value as 3, that indicates f orbitals. How many s orbitals will exist? Only one s orbital, that is represented like this, right? How many p orbitals you know? 3 p orbitals, px orbital, py orbital, pz orbital. How many d orbitals you know? 5 d orbitals, that is dxy, dyz, dxz, dx square, y square, dz square. How many f orbitals you know means 7. 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So how can you calculate these orbitals? First of all, when L value is equal to 0, m value becomes 0. Here I'm writing, if L value is equal to 0, what about the m value? M value is also equal to 0. If L value is equal to 1, m values are starting from minus 1, comma 0, ending with plus 1. If L value is equal to 2, then m value starts from minus 2, minus 2, comma minus 1, comma 0, comma plus 1, comma plus 2. Like that, you can take L value is equal to 3. Then you can say magnetic quantum number values are starting from minus 3, comma minus 2, comma minus 1, comma 0, comma plus 1, comma plus 2, comma plus 3. So based on these values, based on the principal quantum number, azimuthal quantum number, magnetic quantum number values, we can know about the information of electron. And one more quantum number is known, that is the spin quantum number. If you take any orbital, any one orbital, that orbital can have maximum of 2 electrons, one with clockwise spin. The spin quantum number of clockwise electron is taken as plus of, the spin quantum number of anti-clockwise electron is taken as minus of. So this is all about quantum numbers. With the help of quantum number values, we can calculate the energies of electrons. We can calculate energies of electrons. We can say about the position of electrons in the atoms. Position of electrons in the atoms, whether the electrons are present in first orbit, second orbit, third orbit, fourth orbit, or whether the electrons are present in s orbitals, p orbitals, d orbitals. All these information can be given by the quantum numbers. So without knowing the quantum numbers, we cannot write the electronic configuration of the elements. So to write the electronic configuration of the elements, there is a large use of quantum numbers. Yes, coming to the electronic configuration. Electronic configuration is nothing but proper arrangement of electrons in the available orbitals in an atom is called as electronic configuration. The electronic configuration of the elements is based on 3 principles: Aufbau principle, Pauli exclusion principle, and Hund's rule. According to Aufbau principle, electrons always first enter into the lowest energetic orbitals, then only enters into higher energetic orbitals. So according to Aufbau principle, how can we write the energies of orbitals? If I want to write the orbitals in the increasing order of energies, then I can write 1s less than 2s less than 2p less than 3s less than 3p less than 4s less than 3d less than 4p less than 5s and so on. So this is also called as n plus l rule. Why it is called as n plus l rule means here if you take 1s orbital, 1 is indicating principal quantum number, n value is equal to 1, and l value means azimuthal quantum number for s orbitals is 0. So for 1s orbital, n plus l is equal to 1, whereas for 2s orbital, if I am going to take the 2s orbital, so this is for 1s orbital. For 1s orbital, n plus l value is equal to 1. Suppose if I am going to take the 2s orbital, then n value is going to be 2. Total s orbitals, l value is equal to 0, n plus l value is equal to 2. So for the 2s orbitals, n plus l value is equal to 2. So among the 1 and 2, which one is the smaller value? 1 is the smaller value. Then I can write 1s orbitals are having lesser energy than 2s orbitals. Like that, for remaining orbitals, you can calculate. Then you will get the order of energies of orbitals in increasing order as 1s less than 2s less than 2p less than 3s less than 3p less than 4s less than 3d less than 4p less than 5s and so on. So here I am going to write once again very clearly. 1s, 2s 2p, 3s 3p, 4s 3d 4p, next 5s 4d 5p, next 6s 4f 5d 6p. This is the order of filling of electrons in the increasing order of their energies. Order of energies of orbitals. Order of energies of orbitals based on n plus l rule. N plus l rule is also called as Aufbau principle. And if you observe the set here, this is called as ns. This is the nsnp. Next one is nsnp. Next one is ns n minus 1d, because 4 is taken as n, 3 is taken as n minus 1. Next np. Similarly, ns n minus 1d np. Last one is ns, 6s is taken as ns, 4f is taken n minus 2f, 5d is taken as n minus 1d, 6p is taken as np. So here you have to understand this one. The filling of orbitals in the increasing energies is ns, nsnp, nsnp, ns n minus 1d np, ns n minus 1d np, ns n minus 2f n minus 1d np. Otherwise, you can say that 1s less than, 2s less than, 2p less than, 3s less than, 3p less than, 4s less than, 3d less than, 4p less than, 5s less than, 4d less than, 5p less than, 6s less than, 4f less than, 5d less than, 6p and so on. So this is based on Aufbau principle, that is called as n plus l rule. Coming to the Pauli's exclusion principle. If you are going to take d orbital, suppose, because d orbital is going to have 5 d orbitals, dxy, dyz, dxz, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I am going to write a d6 configuration, all these orbitals are called as degenerated orbitals. These are called as degenerated orbitals. Degenerated orbitals. I'm going to say about Hund's rule, not about Pauli's rule. I'm going to discuss about Hund's rule first. So whenever degenerated orbitals are available, whenever the degenerated orbitals are available, each orbital is first filled with 1 electron. That is half filled orbitals. Then only pairing is going to take place. This is called as Hund's rule. And coming to Pauli's exclusion principle. In the Pauli's exclusion principle, this is very important for NEET and CET as well as for JEE. Pauli's exclusion principle. In the case of Pauli's exclusion principle, if I'm going to take any one orbital, suppose I'm going to take a helium. Helium atomic number is 2, electronic configuration is 1s2. Here 2 electrons are there. Yes, where the 2 electrons are present? I'm taking first electron and second electron. First electron is in first orbit. second electron is also present in first orbit. So orbit number is indicated by m value. And electrons are present in s orbitals. For s orbitals, L value is equal to 0. For the second electron also, L value is equal to 0. If L value is equal to 0, m value is equal to 0. Here also m value is equal to 0. But for the first electron, it is in clockwise orientation. Then the spin quantum number is taken as plus of. For the second electron, which is in anti-clockwise direction, we can take the spin quantum number as minus of. So from these values, we can say that for any two electrons in an atom, for any two electrons in an atom, three quantum numbers are going to be same, but the fourth quantum number is going to be different. The fourth quantum number is going to be different. So if two electrons are given in an orbital, the two electrons in an orbital, the two electrons in an orbital can be differed by spin quantum number. So how can we differentiate the two electrons in an orbital? How can we differentiate two electrons in an orbital? Not by principal quantum number, not by azimuthal quantum number, not by magnetic quantum number, because for the two electrons in a particular orbital, the three quantum numbers are same. Principal quantum number, azimuthal quantum number, magnetic quantum number are same, but the spin quantum numbers are going to be different. That's why if any orbital having two electrons, these two electrons are distinguished by their spin quantum numbers. The spin quantum numbers of two electrons, the spin quantum number of two electrons in one orbital is going to be different. So that is called as Pauli's exclusion principle. So about this chapter, we completed the synopsis, and I'm going to send you a PDF regarding MCQs. I solved some of the important MCQs from previous year's questions. Please go through that one. After that, please practice MCQs from your material. And all the best for your coming examinations. Stay home, stay safe. Have a nice day. This is your chemistry lecturer, Sri Naidu, signing off.